On a cold April night, if you stand beside certain railroad tracks, you might hear it. The distant chug of an old steam engine. The mournful whistle, long and low. And if you stay long enough, you might see it too. A black funeral train, ghostly and silent, sliding through the darkness. Draped in mourning banners. Moving without sound, smoke, or crew. Some say it's just a myth. Others swear they've seen it. This is the tale of Abraham Lincoln's phantom funeral train. A spectral journey that haunts America every April. A train that never reached its final rest. In life, Abraham Lincoln was a man of great journeys, from the backwoods of Kentucky to the halls of Washington. But in death, his most haunting journey began. On April 21, 1865, Lincoln's body left Washington, D.C., bound for Springfield, Illinois. A final ride that would span 1,600 miles, stopping in 180 cities and towns. Millions came to see the casket. Soldiers, mothers, weeping children. They lined the tracks with candles. They stood in silence, hats in hand, mourning not just a man, but an idea. Unity, freedom, hope. The funeral train became a national moment of grief. But some say that grief never left. That Lincoln's train still rides the rails, especially along the original route, each April. Ghost stories surface, from Albany to Cleveland, from Harrisburg to Indianapolis. People report strange phenomena, a cold wind without a source, clock stopping at 8 p.m. The hour the train passed, lights flickering, pets howling for no reason, and the sound of a train that no longer runs. In Illinois, a man claimed to see a train of shadows. It glided past without wheels touching the tracks. Inside, soldiers stood at attention. One held a casket, their eyes hollow, their faces pale. In New York, a woman walking her dog froze in place. She watched the air shimmer and saw a long, black train silently pass. Her dog refused to move until it disappeared. No tracks have been used there in decades. In Pennsylvania, a railroad worker reported strange fog. It rolled in with no weather warning. Dense, white, and cold. Then came the sound of metal wheels and a train whistle echoing across the valley. When the fog lifted, he was alone, but his pocket watch had stopped. The same time Lincoln's train once passed that town. Skeptics say it's just imagination, that we see what we want to believe. But the stories are eerily consistent. Always in April, always along the 1865 route, and always at night. No engineer has ever claimed to drive it. No modern train has matched its description. Black iron cars, velvet-lined interiors, lanterns with no visible flame, and a flag-draped coffin. Some say it's Lincoln himself, that his restless spirit still journeys home. Others say it's the nation's grief, frozen in time, repeating like a ghostly echo. Or maybe it's a message, a reminder of a past not yet buried, a warning to not forget. In folklore, ghost trains often symbolize unresolved endings, tragedies without closure, and Lincoln's death was one of the greatest shocks in American history. Shot just days after the Civil War ended, a time of victory turned to sorrow, a symbol of peace stolen by violence. The nation couldn't let go, and maybe, neither could he. The route was carefully planned, matching his 1861 trip to Washington, but in reverse, a full-circle journey, one that might never truly end. Some believe the train absorbs energy from mourners, that each new witness keeps it alive. That belief gives it fuel. Others think it's a psychic imprint, an echo of overwhelming national grief, a memory so powerful it carved itself into time, and now it repeats every year, like clockwork or fate. They say history repeats itself, but what about the parts we forgot? Welcome to Echoes of History, the channel where we dig up the dusty corners of the past to uncover the weird, the wild, and the wait, what? Stories they didn't teach you in school. Grab your curiosity and maybe a cup of tea, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see the world. On a quiet April night, a distant whistle echoes through the dark. It's not from any modern train. It's the sound of something old or something spectral. Locals call it the ghost train of Lincoln. A phantom funeral train, they say, still runs its somber course, a train that once carried the body of President Abraham Lincoln. From Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois, a journey meant to mourn and honor. Now, it haunts the tracks with silence and shadows. It all began in April 1865. Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated. The nation was in mourning. To allow citizens to grieve, his body was taken by train. The route was long over 1,600 miles. It mirrored the path Lincoln had taken to the Capitol years before. Only now, it was the path of farewell. The train stopped in cities along the way. Each stop brought mourners by the thousands. Candlelight, flowers, and silent tears followed its path. The journey took 13 days, but according to legend, it never truly ended. People began to report strange sightings. A train of light gliding over old rails, with no sound except a faint bell tolling in the wind. They claimed to see black draped carriages, a coffin visible through flickering lanterns, soldiers in ghostly blue standing at attention, faces pale, eyes hollow, uniforms worn by time and always. The sound of weeping just beyond hearing. In Albany, New York, a telegraph operator saw it. The wires reportedly stopped transmitting as the ghost train passed, as if time itself paused to let it through. In Cleveland, Ohio, a night watchman swore he saw glowing wheels. But no train ever came. Just light, cold air, and a deep sense of grief. The sightings always occur in April, always along the same historic road, always with the same somber signs. Some towns even hold vigils, not for the living, but for the train, to honor the moment it returns. Witnesses describe clocks stopping, dogs howling at nothing, lights flickering in homes, as if the air itself remembers. Skeptics call it folklore. But the stories persist, passed down like family heirlooms. In Pennsylvania, a woman recalls her grandmother's tale of seeing the lanterns drift by her childhood window. No tracks remain then, but the train still came. In Indiana, a group of teens filmed a strange mist and the fog. Shapes formed a procession. The footage was blurry but unsettling. Viewers reported chills, tears, and strange dreams afterward. The legend has only grown with time. Books, articles, and documentaries explore the phenomenon, but no one can explain it. Why does it only appear in April? Why only along the funeral path? Some believe it's the weight of national sorrow, etched into the land itself, a grief too heavy to rest. Others suggest it's a form of residual energy, a loop caught in the folds of time. A moment too significant to fade, a president so revered even death couldn't erase his presence. Paranormal investigators have tried to capture it, have recordings in the woods, thermal cameras, along abandoned tracks. Some capture nothing, others claim whispers, shadows, and unexplained cold spots. But the train remains elusive, never caught, never stopped, just glimpsed and felt. A reminder of loss and of a nation forever changed. Children who hear the story watch the tracks in April. Elders sit by their porches and listen, waiting for the whistle that doesn't belong, for the lanterns that flicker without flame, for the ghostly rhythm of wheels on vanished rails. The ghost train of Lincoln never runs late and never arrives. It simply passes, like a breath of memory, like history mourning itself. Some say it's Lincoln watching over the country. Others say it's just a story to keep his spirit alive. But either way, it still moves people, like the train once did. With reverence, with silence, with sorrow. A phantom train bound not by tracks, but by time. A journey that repeats each year, through towns, through memory, through mist. A funeral that never ends. The train whistles echo in the distance, carried by April winds. It is said they can be heard in Champaign, Illinois, just after midnight. There's no train scheduled at that hour, and yet the sound lingers. Eyewitnesses describe a low hum before the noise, like a tremble in the ground. Then the unmistakable whistle, a long, mournful cry, as if mourning still clings to the iron rails. One farmer claimed to see lights moving along the old tracks, flickering like lanterns from another time. He thought it was a historical reenactment, but there were no reenactors, no engines, no passengers, just the lights. Then he heard music, a faint brass band playing funeral hymns, the same tunes reported by townsfolk in 1865. He stood frozen until the sounds faded. The ground beneath him never trembled again. In Springfield, a retired railroad worker recalled a different sight. He saw a train with black shrouds, draped in velvet and crepe. A photograph from another era. The train didn't appear to be touching the tracks, just gliding, silently, until the bells rang. They rang even though the crossing gates didn't lower, as if the town itself acknowledged the ghostly procession. The man swore he saw Union soldiers on board, some saluting, others with bowed heads. And at the center, the casket of Abraham Lincoln, covered in the stars and stripes, just as it had been in 1865. He ran to tell his wife, but when they returned, the tracks were silent, empty. A nearby dog howled into the night. A professor in Albany, studying auditory illusions, offered a theory. He claimed it was mass suggestion, that people expect to hear something and convince themselves they do. The mind is powerful, he said, especially when history is involved. But he couldn't explain the photographs. A local photographer captured a shadowy outline of a train on a night with no scheduled departures and no long exposures, just one shot. The image shows faint lanterns, a flag-draped shape, and men in uniform. Paranormal experts descended upon Albany that year. They conducted EVP sessions. Some claimed to hear the name Lincoln, others reported strange temperature drops. One device allegedly malfunctioned when placed near the tracks. It began ticking wildly, then stopped altogether, as if time had briefly bent. The train's route passed through 20 cities, each with its own stories. In Cleveland, an old woman says she hears horses every April, galloping, then abruptly stopping. She remembers her grandmother telling her the same. It's generational, memory passed like heirlooms. Some believe the train carries not just Lincoln, but echoes of a nation in mourning, frozen in the hour of its greatest loss. That April is never fully past, that the grief still runs along those rails. Carried forward like a shadow, the funeral train was supposed to be a closure, a way to unite a broken country. But maybe it never arrived. Maybe it's still traveling, never quite reaching its final station. Caught between memory and myth, between past and present, one railroad historian found a peculiar entry in a century-old logbook. It simply read, "Train passed, none scheduled, no crew." There was no explanation, no follow-up, just the line like a whisper. Caught in ink, the case files remain open, not in police departments, but in whispered tales and books tucked away in dusty libraries and online forums where believers and skeptics debate. But no one has solved it. Why the train appears, why it chooses April, why it refuses to stay gone. Perhaps some stories were never meant to end. Perhaps some passengers are still waiting, still riding, still grieving, still bound to the tracks of a ghostly America. The train had passed through major cities, but the ghost sightings were often reported in the quietest towns, places where silence lingered long after dusk, where the air held on a memory like mist in the trees. In Albany, New York, some residents swore the train came each year without fail, not with fanfare or ceremony, but with the cold whisper of iron and grief. They said it arrived precisely at midnight. No one was aboard but shadows. In the stillness, the old rails seemed to tremble, even though the tracks had long been removed. One man claimed he'd seen the glowing outlines of soldiers, standing rigidly at attention as the train passed. Another described the slow toll of a bell that no one could find. It was as if grief itself had learned to travel, from town to town, year to year. In Cleveland, Ohio, the phenomenon took on a local life. Some residents refused to walk near the old depot in April. Others waited, year after year, hoping to see something beyond the veil. One night, a group of teenagers heard a whistle, high and mournful, like something from another century. They laughed nervously. Until the sound came again, louder. They ran, and some never spoke of it again. In towns where the tracks were gone, sightings were more mysterious. How does a train run where no tracks remain? Witnesses described it gliding, not rolling, emitting not smoke, but something darker, a swirling mist, black as ink, yet weightless. In the countryside near Dunkirk, New York, a farmer once reported seeing a black engine shimmering in the dark. It hovered just inches above the soil. The cows refused to leave the barn that night. Animals, it seemed, sensed what people could not. The train moved slowly, like a funeral procession stuck between two worlds. A ghost not just of a president, but of a nation in mourning. Some say the sightings intensified during times of political unrest, as if Lincoln's spirit stirred when democracy trembled. As if his soul had unfinished work, the ghost train became more than myth. It became a reflection of loss, of legacy, of lingering sorrow. Paranormal investigators began to take an interest. EMF readings were taken along the old route. Some spikes were unexplained, some equipment failed. Entirely at midnight, one team in Pennsylvania set up infrared cameras. At exactly 12:07 a.m., they recorded something strange. A faint shape, long and narrow, with a plume trailing behind. The footage was grainy but haunting. Skeptics called it mist. Believers said it was Lincoln's final journey, looping endlessly. Others reported clocks stopping when the train passed. Watches froze, phones died. It was as if time refused to overlap with the dead. The route through Indiana brought similar stories. In Indianapolis, where Lincoln's body had once rested, sightings were whispered from porch to porch. A conductor's voice, heard faintly in the wind, a child who dreamed of a coffin draped in flags. The towns weren't just haunted, they were remembering. Not every town spoke of the ghost train, but the ones that did spoke softly, as if too loud a voice might summon it. April became a month of uneasy waiting. Some locals lit candles by the old tracks. Others left flowers on platforms long abandoned. These weren't just tributes to a ghost. They were messages to history itself, that it hadn't been forgotten, that the journey still mattered, that some stories echo louder in silence. The train passed through the heartland of memory. Its ghost carried more than a body, it carried meaning. The weight of a war, the silence after a shot, the echo of a eulogy recited by the land itself. Sometimes it was seen by only one person. A man walking home, a woman standing by her kitchen window. No one believed them, but they didn't care. They knew what they saw, not with their eyes, but with something deeper. The same sense that makes a person turn around, certain someone is watching. The train didn't seek attention. It simply retraced its sorrow through fields and towns that once stood still to mourn. Each year, it came, and each year, it vanished, leaving no tracks, no witnesses, just a shiver in the wind, a feeling that something sacred had passed by, the kind of thing that demands reverence, that asks nothing but silence and leaves behind a question, not of what it is, but why it returns, why the dead retrace their path, and why, even now, we still wait, still listening for the whistle in the dark. As the 20th century dawned, America changed, cities grew, steam gave way to electricity, and yet stories of the ghost train endured. Rail workers claimed to hear the whistle in the dead of night. Where no train was scheduled, telegraph lines would go dead as if something passed through. Unseen, in Albany, New York, a signalman reported an icy breeze just before midnight. A spectral train rumbled through, then vanished. He was never the same again. In Ohio, old-timers refused to go near the tracks on April 27th. "You don't mess with the dead," one said. Decades passed, but every spring, reports would trickle in. In Pennsylvania, a boy heard a whistle and saw glowing lights float past in silence. He told his parents, who thought it was just a dream. But the conductor's lantern he described matched one from 1865 in Chicago. A museum volunteer researching the funeral route grew obsessed. He compiled every sighting he could find. Back to the 1870s, patterns emerged. Each sighting occurred near midnight, always in April, always. Near the original funeral path, the train never strayed from its route, as if it were bound to. History. In 1933, a woman in Utica heard solemn music drifting through her open window. She stepped outside and saw nothing, just the wind sway in the trees. But on her porch, she found a single black ribbon, weathered, faded, tied in the style used on Lincoln's actual funeral train. The train became legend, then mystery, then folklore. But what is folklore if not a memory carried through generations? In 1955, a veteran rail worker in Indiana told a young reporter his own story. "I heard it," he whispered. "The wheels, the breath of steam, the sorrow." He swore he saw passengers dressed in 1800s attire. No one else was there. No train was scheduled. The line had been closed for a year. Yet the tracks bore fresh impressions. In Springfield, children used to place pebbles on the rails. On April nights, they'd return to find the stones missing or shattered, as if something massive had rolled over them. Historians often shrug off the stories. Just coincidence, they say. Our minds play tricks, but not everyone is convinced. A few investigators began mapping sightings on paper. They noticed something strange. The train always appears in the same order. Engine first, then the honor guard, then the coffin car, then the silent mourners, then the light, and then nothing. No sound. No tracks. Just cold air and questions. What force holds the funeral train to this world? Is it sorrow so powerful it repeats endlessly? Or memory itself, refusing to let go? Psychics who visited sites of sightings often reported overwhelming grief. Not fear, grief. "It's not haunting," one said. "It's remembering." In 1971, a small team of spiritualists gathered near Harrisburg. They held a vigil near the tracks, candles flickering in the dark. At 12:15 a.m., all candles extinguished at once. One member fainted, another wept without knowing why. The tape recorder they brought captured nothing but silence, followed by a distant whistle, too faint to be mechanical, too clear to be imagined. No train ran that line for 20 years. They left the hill shaken. No one returned. As the 1980s and 1990s passed, stories faded, but not entirely. In quiet forums and old train clubs, people still talk. A conductor swears he saw a flicker of light outside Stuyvesant. A woman from Dunkirk never forgot the low hum of wheels rolling over frozen ground. They don't want fame. They only want to say, "I saw it, too." A tale shared in whispers. A train bound to its grief. Time doesn't stop it. History doesn't erase it. And even today, somewhere, in the dark, the ghost train might still be running, following the tracks it followed once before, guided not by coal or steam, but by memory, by mourning, and by a promise that even death could not silence. The journey is not over. The train is never late, and Lincoln's spirit rides still, through April shadows and eternal rail. The train never arrived in Washington again and had gone as far as it ever would. Its journey, both physical and spectral, had ended long ago, but some say the echoes never quite settled. In Utica, they speak of a whispering breeze before April nights grow still. In Westfield, townsfolk recall stories of clocks freezing as if time itself paid tribute. And in Albany, old men say they once heard the whistle drift across the river, though no trains ran that night. Some dismiss it as romanticized folklore. Others say it's a nation's collective memory refusing to forget. Either way, the ghost train persists in America's haunted imagination. Rail enthusiasts try to track every detail of the original route. Paranormal investigators set up cameras and sensors each year. Local papers run articles recounting the legend, adding to the myth with every retelling. The strange thing is, sightings have never entirely stopped. They've just grown quieter, like the distant hum of a memory fading but never gone. Some witnesses report seeing an old steam engine covered in black cloth, drifting silently along tracks long removed. Others claim to see shadowy figures standing motionless at rural depots. Always at night, always in April, the phantom train is said to disrupt clocks and telegraphs along its path. No clear reason why, but the effect is curiously consistent. Perhaps something in the energy of collective mourning still pulses through the earth. One story tells of a soldier on leave who saluted the silent engine before realizing no one else could see it. He never spoke of it again, but he kept that moment close for the rest of his life. Many believe the train is not a haunting in the traditional sense. It's a ritual in a nation's subconscious performing a yearly rite of remembrance. A ghost not of a man, but of an idea too powerful to die. Lincoln was more than a president. He became a symbol of unity, loss, and unfinished healing. His death left a scar across the American soul, and that scar, in some places, still bleeds into legend. The train becomes the stage on which that pain reenacts itself, not to frighten, but to remind. The railroad was once a tool of war and peace. Now, it is a metaphor for transition, memory, and time itself. The ghost train rides not just through geography, but through the heart of a country still wrestling with itself. Psychologists might call it mass delusion. Historians might call it historical romanticism. But neither fully explains the power of the myth. Why do some tales endure while others vanish? Perhaps because they meet a need. The need to remember, to explain, or simply to feel awe. The ghost train gives people permission to grieve what they never lived through. It offers a silent, spectral space for reflection. In a world moving ever faster, it moves slowly, ceremonially. It does not ask to be believed, only to be felt. And sometimes, that's enough. There's something beautifully human about imagining a train that still carries sorrow through the night. A vessel of grief, looping eternally across forgotten rails. Headed not to a station, but to remembrance itself. Whether real or imagined, the ghost train of Lincoln holds power. It's the kind of story that doesn't need to be proven. It only needs to be told. Because in the telling, something old awakens. A reverence, a stillness, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of hope. That even in death, some journeys continue. That the memory of someone deeply good can echo forever. Every April, the whispers return. A train whistle, a flash of flickering lanterns in the dark. And for a brief moment, it's as if time bends. The living and the dead share the same platform. And Lincoln, silent and solemn, rides once more through fields and factories, over bridges and beneath stars, not to be forgotten, but to be carried forward gently, reverently through memory. His train a symbol, his journey a poem, still steaming through the American night. So next April, listen closely, watch the empty tracks, and wonder who or what might be passing through. Not all. Ghosts seek to haunt. Some just wish to be remembered, and some simply refuse to be left behind. The ghost train of Lincoln may never be fully explained, but its story lives on in every eye turn toward the horizon. In every town that hears something strange in the stillness, it reminds us that grief is not always meant to fade. That memory is not always quiet, and that legends are not always born from fantasy. Sometimes they're born from love, from national heartbreak, from a farewell that never truly ended. In the night, when the wind changes direction and the stars seem to hold their breath, that's when it passes. The train, the sorrow the man. And in that moment, history is not something past, but something alive. Something moving still, not on rusted tracks, but through us. Always onward, never forgotten. That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you raise an eyebrow don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that dusty little bell so you never miss another echo from the past. Drop it in the comments. We're always listening for new echoes. Got a weird bit of history you think we should cover? Until next time, keep your curiosity loud and your history weird. That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you